Okay, share screen. All right. Oh, I should have checked. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear me. I'm live. I did it. No one knows about it, but I'm here. Can I schedule a stream? Date and time. Warning, your connection is unstable. Please try. All right. I'm live. I've done this the whole time, shared my screen. Usually I'll be upward. I don't know what's going on now. Okay, well, what should we do? I should have, let's try it. Well, we'll put it up on Facebook and we'll send it as a group chat. Here, do I have a way to get my link? I can do it through my app, then I can share it. This is new for me. Does it show that I'm live? Your videos. $50 more subscribers to go live. All right. Well, I don't know if this is going to save. I'm not sure what's going to... I put politics in here. Normally, I'm all rare to go, but I know everybody's like burnt out. And now they're starting to see what I've been seeing years ago, which is... Well, it's a long story. I wish I had a whiteboard. Oh, well, and now there we go. See, this isn't going to work. I need to find... Well, this is good. This is a good, successful first. Now we know the ins and outs. This, I could only use this laptop because it's standard def, but it's actually better than the one I got on my desktop. My hair is messed up. All right, look, I swear, I'm a fun guy, not a mushroom. But I have a lot to say, but like I've already said it. It's just like... Okay, so I've been watching for years, like, people try to set up... How do I find the right way to say our stock market has no money? It's all overinflated value. They're all trying to please a computer system to get that value. They brought our news organizations because that computer system looks at news resources, and when they ran out of money and didn't have enough cash for their trade, we gave $120 billion a month to Wall Street in the form of bond buys, which they use to buy our food, land, water, and air supplies. It has nothing to do with Trump. Go watch. They're getting rid of the filibuster. They got rid of all the real estate laws. They were attacking squatters' rights for the longest time because they're going to own all the land, but they're not going to be able to maintain all of it. And eventually some of that land is going to become abandoned. And where somebody homeless could maybe move into there, we're getting rid of their squatters' rights laws. Like that's where they're setting up. They own our farms. The bond buy specifically went to programs to fund people's down payments. So even if you own a house, like you're paying a monthly payment for your down payment to be able to afford it, because nobody can afford a house, period. I don't know anybody. I know one guy who I worked with who was able to buy a house, and he was a chemical engineer, and he was happy that he got bulletproof windows because they kept shooting out and throwing stuff through his windows and breaking his glass in his front yard, and cars were up on cinder blocks. And I'm like, we work in Cheshire for Airgas, a national air and gas company. I'm living above a business, above a lawyer's office, driving a 2003 car, and I'm one of their top tech guys I'm the top tech guy in the research and development section of our company. Like, it just, and it's not like, it's just, nobody's making enough money. The top 1% that they claim starts at $500,000 a year. But then Jeff Bezos, who's also in the same category as the top 1%, at least as of 2017, made $245 million a day. A day. So what I'm trying to say, and I hope this gets recorded, is if this is just a live thing and then it gets lost to the ether, I don't know. I don't know how this works. I don't know if I get to save it. I don't know. I see that everything's like delayed and starting to lose its. I don't even know if my microphone's going to pick me up properly. I've been watching this for years, and I've been watching the end of the world, and I was like freaking out. And it's not just with Trump coming in, like both parties have been pushing this along. Like they're starting to acknowledge, oh, Bernie kind of was right. Well, yeah, we knew that, but you did everything in your power. You can't even say, well, I guess he was right. Like you had every opportunity to know that he was right, Democratic Party. You even got your unity this time. Like that's why I think they're stunned. They thought their plan would work. They replaced Joe Biden in the 0 hour, thus avoiding a contested election. And you got your fucking unity. Pardon my French. But they did. And even with that, they couldn't win the election because they weren't promising. They were actively working against the people while trying to say we're your only hope. And then the Republicans are just as bad. They say we're your only hope. The Democrats are bad, blah, blah, blah. They'll point out real things. And then they'll say, basically, they convince you to vote for the same policies that we've been all doing all along, saying that, oh, it's going to be different. That, like, we need to get rid of regulation. What have we been doing since the 90s? They make it seem like we're overregulated, except most of the regulations are at the local level. The local and state level on us. When it comes to regulations on anybody with actual wealth or power, there are none. There are none. We just got rid of 67 real estate laws in a time when people are buying up houses, we're losing stuff, there's squatters' rights coming into question, and without even a peep, no discussion, they just told us after the fact 67 laws have been repealed. And that's under Biden. Biden had the House and Senate for the first 2 years, and they couldn't even secure abortion rights or anything. They could have codified it. They could have done stuff. And Biden was out there now giving Trump's talking points from 2016 on abortion, by the way. So, like, no matter how you slice it or dice it, it's very frustrating to watch this play out. I really lost all hope pretty much in 2020. Pete Buttigieg cheated in Iowa. He paid for the app that flipped all the votes to him. Democratic Party had to apologize. This isn't some conspiracy. They had to issue an apology. It took them 10 days to do a count, claiming they were going to check for accuracy. And then when they started releasing them, they didn't count on all the individual counties, pretty much releasing all their numbers already. So news organizations were documenting this, certified numbers of the local towns. And then, of course, when the Democratic Party starts releasing stuff, none of the towns match up. And there was enough that Bernie even was like, all right, we need a recount. They said, we'll give you a partial recount. They start doing a partial recount. All the delegates start flipping a Bernie away from Pete Buttigieg. One delegate away, where it would have tied it after Pete Buttigieg has been going around with a victory lap. Think of the scandal. He's been saying, I'm the winner because we saw it coming. If he suddenly lost and Bernie won, that would have catapulted Bernie back into the spotlight, and he would have won Super Tuesday. He would have probably won the South Carolina thing, too, because it would have been like, what the fuck are you doing? But one delegate away, they decide, cancel the presses, they stop the recount. And said, we think that's good. and they left Pete Buttigieg as the winner. So, and they even argued in court it's just a poll. That it's a private, and that's the problem. The private parties are just doing private polls. But then you look at what the Republicans are doing, and it's frustrating because people say, "Oh, we're racist." Put all that aside. It's marketing. Okay, here's what I see Republicans doing, and I see Democrats coming in unity with it. It's repealing laws, getting rid of stuff while marketing like they're actually doing something. We've gotten rid of pretty much every single protection that we put in place after the Great Depression. We started that in 1999. You can't even blame one or the other. They're doing history over and over from what I see in patterns. Because when Clinton was leaving and Bush was coming in, they got rid of Glass-Steagall. Hillary Clinton's going out there saying financial people have learned their lesson and they don't need us to regulate them. And basically the bill said you can't gamble with people's money. That's it. You can't gamble with people's money. You can gamble with your profits. You can't gamble with people's money. You need to have the money there if people come to the bank and want to cash out. That's the law. And if we had that law in place, the crash of 2007 and 8, they say it's 8, it was 2007 when it happened. Anyway, I hope this gets recorded. I've been trying to talk about this stuff for a while, and I think people are finally ready to listen. Democratic Party's starting to slowly be like, oh, well, I guess Bertie was right, the popular thing. But it's like, yeah, you already lost to Trump. You let a con man take over the middle class, and people are cheering it on. I don't want to put those people down. Like, people are like, oh, they're all racist. No, they have been tricked. They have been tricked. They think that they're voting for their interests. Like, oh, let's get rid of all the regulation. The government is your management organization. It is your management system. And I understand the need to want to, maybe you don't need every single thing, like, but some of it's for safety, and some of it is bullshit stuff like this zoning thing here, and they mix it in to try to trick you. But meanwhile, like, you look at stuff at the top where it's like, all right, but like anti-competing, so companies don't go out of business. Every company is being bought by another company, and they're all essentially owned by just a few. Unilever owns pretty much everything. We go to a grocery store and think we have a bunch of choices. We see a bunch of different companies. They might even say like Frito-Lay, Kraft, or all. As far as I know, most of these are Unilever. Most of these are Unilever. I think Kraft is Unilever. I know like Dove soap, I believe, is Unilever as well. Like it's. So going back to what I said earlier, and again, I hope this is recorded, or maybe I'm talking to no one. I didn't even post a live thing. Nobody's gonna know my live stream. I'm not even like promoting it. I mean, this is basically a recording for later. I got 12 minutes on here. Is this even gonna share screen? I would think it would make me tell somebody that I went live, but I'm gonna post. Oh, but that's right. I went into here to try to get the live link. It's like, how do I share it? There's no option to share either. Pop out dash. Like, how do I promote this? Engage with your audience. Start a Q&A. Start a poll. Oh, share. Facebook. Look at me, I'm a refugee of the island life. Well, look at me. Is it actually adding? My browser is no longer supported. It's not even letting me share. See, I'm using like a really old 2008 MacBook. I don't know if it's actually working. Did it post? Function. Keep editing. Well, who knows? I'm using a 2008 laptop, trying to do my first ever live stream and talk about politics, and I don't even know if this is going to record. I'm in a 70s disco shirt. And yeah, I'm just casually talking about the end of the world that I've been watching come for 10 years, and I don't know. I tried. I shouted all my friends. I did a lot of tweets. I tried to get involved with different organizations. I just didn't know what to do. And this is really all I had to do this entire time. It's even easier than I thought it was. Like, I should have just started this in my living room. All I would have to do was pop it up on my table and just said, go live. And just start talking. And maybe would have gotten some viewers. Either way, it's not too late now. This is why I want to say this. It doesn't have to be a Trump thing. Like, people are like, oh, the next 4 years he's going to dismantle everything. Yeah, he is. But I'm going to tell you something. If Kamala was in place, they would have dismantled it in 6. Like, this has been a plan by both parties for a while because both parties have been taken over. Let me show you. 97 out of 100 senators signed a bill during the pandemic. They said they gave away $5 trillion. This is where I'm going to end this live video. We're going to shut it down. We're going to see if the video saves, and you guys can watch it later if you want. In another day, then you can hang out with me, and we'll try it again maybe tomorrow afternoon. Maybe on the lunch break, we'll get some music going or something. But I will tell you this much. $5 trillion spent during the pandemic. $4.3 trillion of that went to the richest of the rich as those bond buys. Food, land, water supplies, the mortgages, these few banks, BlackRock, they own it all. And you might say, well, I'm sure they do. Even if you're a Trump guy, like, he's helping them. But even if you're a Biden guy, he's also been helping them. Both administrations passed this, 97 out of 100. Bernie was one of the 3 senators that didn't. They gave $120 billion a month to the stock market. And I'll tell you why. Because the stock market is run by a computer system implemented by Bernie Madoff in 2006 that scans reputable news articles and uses an algorithm to recreate the past 30 years of human history of how they would react in fractions of a second. And if the computer algorithm overreacts and causes a tank, because people would normally have a slide, the system shuts down and resets so no crash can ever occur. So they're not taking any risk, even though these are the guys that take the risk. They're not taking any risk. If the risk happens, it shuts down and resets. That's number one. Number two, the assets have been building upon themselves. The whole system is run on, our cash now is based on the value of these companies. We used to be based on gold, actual tangible things. Now it's the value of these companies. And the problem is that the companies aren't making the actual cash that they claim they are. You see the revenue, you see what it's worth. But if you say you're worth $20 trillion, at the end of the day, you might only have $7 billion. Somehow, how does that happen? Well, because of the system. The system will look at everything with the algorithm and then adjust the price accordingly. So every year, it just has to be better. It doesn't have to be logical. It just has to fit the narrative. So they were hit really hard when sales started tanking. People didn't have money. They couldn't buy in stores. And then the companies kept devaluing and devaluing automatic. But then here's what happens after a big crash. They're like, oh, this is a rebuild. But they didn't need that. If it's just up 1% or stays the same after a crash, yeah, you're a really bad year. But guess what? They're only concerned about quarter to quarter, year to year. So now, next year, oh, sales are good. You might have flatlined and tanked and never recovered. But this system will keep upgrading your stock and saying you're worth more and more and more and more. Because it's only looking at the last year of data. Once that happened, that was years ago. We're not looking at that anymore. So you have a big crash, let's say in 2008. By 2010, these stocks are starting to really value up. They haven't actually made any more money. They're not recovering, but their shares keep going up in value. So what happens next? Well, eventually you start to realize it's like the Great Depression. You want to sell a share. I'm a broker. I want to sell you 20,000 shares and make $20 million. And I go to pay from an account that should have billions in it because of the value of these perceived companies and the stock options and the stuff we've traded. But because we've traded everything and everything's on paper, you go in the bank account and the actual cash on hand might be null. Well, what would happen if that happens? Like suddenly the company is like, well, you're supposed to be worth $20 billion, but you don't have the actual cash on hand that you thought. And this computer will automatically devalue the stock. It tanks, which means the value that they did have, could have sold the shares for to recover back, gone. Like, it will just immediately have a reaction, which the system will not, well, only if it happens to every company at once will they try to reset it and do it. But, I mean, it's still going to be looking at data. The point is that one by one, the companies start to get devalued. They get bought by other companies. And this is what we've seen over time, is like they keep inflating and saying it's worth a lot. And what happens is eventually, like if you try to sell that share, you might not have the cash to actually do the transaction. And that's when the money gravy train ends and everything falls apart. And if you realize all these companies are overinflated, the computer's going to automatically have to devalue them by quite a bit. And it's a complete economic collapse of our system. It's a chain reaction that you cannot recover from, because our system's value is based on the perceived value of these companies, which will now be perceived as worthless, and you can't build on worthlessness. So, or I mean, you can with the system, but I mean, they're gaming these algorithms on purpose to do this. This is what I've been seeing. So right around the time of the pandemic, I actually wrote some posts too. I was like, they're going to use a natural disaster or something to inject money into this. And that's what they did. $120 billion a month went to the brokers as cash, new generated cash. Cash that they use to buy all of our resources. There comes a, remind me later. Oh, now it's posting. Maybe. Okay. Well, it might have posted. I don't know. We'll see. I know it's hard to like try to tie everything together, but what they essentially did is used $120 billion, which is no small amount, a month. All right, we make a big deal of writing checks for 6 months, going back and forth to give $100 billion to Ukraine. We make a big deal of it. $4.3 trillion went to the bankers. $700 billion went to the unemployment checks. Everything else, none went to. Imagine if they gave that to small businesses, said, "Hey, pause your inventory during the pandemic." Like, imagine the difference that would have made. Instead, we gave it to the richest of the rich, and it was also the house of cards wouldn't come crashing down. That was their justification. They're right. With this system, if there's no value behind it, once the money train ran out, it would devalue the stock. But now you injected $120 billion. They got their asses saved at the last minute. But of course, they're diluting all that. They put it in their accounts. They transfer their wealth out into other currencies in other countries. And eventually, you're going to have an economic collapse where America is still here, but has very little power. All the land is going to be owned by certain entities, factions, Bill Gates, mostly BlackRock. They also are the parent owners of the parent companies. So let's say they want a whole swath of land, and all of those people are different employees of different companies, most of which they own. They could just lay off all those people in that area, and eventually, if they default on their loan enough, they own that property because they hold the deeds. It's very scary to think about, and I've been watching it for a while, and now it's been a while since we've stopped giving them the blank checks every month. But it's like the audacity too. They made a big deal about Bernie Sanders' college plan, not even paying off student loans, just to send people to state colleges and universities tuition free from now on. It would cost $70 billion a year, and they were like, Bernie, how will we pay for it? But when it came to giving $120 billion a month to the richest people so they could just go nuts, buy whatever they want. I mean, Jeff Bezos makes $245 million a day. And that was, I think, 2017, before even the pandemic. And he bought a super yacht, which I wouldn't even care about, with 2 days' pay, $450 million, $500 million. But he built it on an opposite side of a bridge near France because he wanted to watch it being built. And they told him, don't build it there. You won't be able to get it back out when it's finished. And he said, don't worry about it. And they were like, we're not going to allow you to do this. We've had this bridge for hundreds of years, a historic bridge. We fought to keep it. We want this bridge. He finishes a super yacht and just demolishes the bridge and leaves. And you barely hear peep out of it because they own all the news media. And I'm sure he probably paid in the end for stuff, but like he just plowed it down. These people can do whatever the fuck they want. And you don't understand. You guys have grown up with rights and things that were guaranteed by the government, stuff that your ancestors fought and died for to make law. It's your law. The government is your law. That's what made America so unique, is that the government was us. We instituted the government. And it's turning into a shell of what it was. I've watched corruption happen. The DNC take down Bernie twice, do everything they could. They had Obama calling the Super Tuesday before saying drop out and endorse Biden. And then they knew Biden wasn't going to win. I mean, look how fast everything shifted. They've been saying for months, you've had all this evidence. It was nothing new. In fact, I would dare say go back to the debate against Bernie in 2020. Biden was falling apart then. I think he had a worse debate, but they called it a genius debate. But this time around, it was like, oh, he's out of it. We need to get rid of him. And they replaced him within 2 weeks. He said he stepped down. Come on. Even if he chose to step down, they were all calling him about it. And I got to tell you, this is not a last-minute thing because I was writing about it last year or a few years back. I knew this is how they're going to do it because they wanted to avoid a contested election. If they had any sort of primary, somebody else would have had delegates, and the election, the convention would have been an open convention where people would have made their case to try to get delegates to be the new leader of the party in the 0 hour. And Bernie would have had a really damn good shot to do that. They could have chanced that. So instead, nobody got to run, and then Biden drops out, and then when they have the convention and everybody's like, we're going to back Kamala, it's like nobody can stand up and try to make a speech against her now. Well, they got the unity. And that's all they had wanted. They had claimed if we just had the unity, we would have had it. You Bernie people don't understand. Here's what I understand, flat out. All the Hillary people, all of them, will vote blue no matter who. Every single one with the establishment. They would have, if Bernie was running, if a boot was running as a Democrat, if a squirrel, they would have voted blue. So don't tell me that Bernie wouldn't have won, because there were people that were like, Bernie or bust. That was a slogan, Bernie or bust. And, I mean, I myself proudly voted third party 2016. If I could go back in history and they said, Stephen, somehow your vote's going to matter, you could put Hillary Clinton in instead, and we will have never gotten Trump in the first place, I would still say no. I think I wouldn't vote for Trump. I would just vote the same way I did. And if I could go back to 2020, I only voted, at that point I was stopping to care. I knew I voted Biden, and the only reason I did was to please my wife's family. At that point, I was like, there's no real candidate that in 2020 besides Bernie, but he had dropped out, and it was like, but that wasn't like I was excited about Biden. It was literally, and I really kind of would look back. If I could do 2020 over again, they could say, Stephen, you could have anybody. You could. I would try to get Bernie, but I would. I can't sit here and do this. I just have to say that, like, I've watched so much corruption. I'll break it down. I have the receipts. I have seen what they did. And I think it is important because we need to course correct and kill the Democratic and Republican parties and start new parties. And the only way we're going to do that is the same way in 2016. I guess I'll just do it over again. We need to be vigilant of what laws are changing right now, because within the next few months they're going to be changing a lot. But they're changing a lot already before even the election. And that's what concerns me. I got to double check if they got rid of the filibuster law, because there's stuff that they might just part out, and then who's to blame? It happened in between administrations. Like, that's why it's too late. That's why I'm like screaming to the thing, and I had a chance. I could have been talking about it, and eventually with my loud mouth, I probably would have caught fire. But I don't know. Right now I'm talking, I have not a single view, but I also didn't promote it at all. So anyway, that's my spiel. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching my live stream, no one. Love you all. I promise I'll have music tomorrow. Million.